It's nice to see you all. I'm Pat. I think most of you know that by now. I'm Pat James. I'm Dean of Library and Technology and Distance Ed at Mount San Jacinto College, and I work very closely with the @ONE program and have been for the last, I don't know, 15 years maybe, I think. Yeah, about 15 years. Taught online, taught multimedia production online, which is not easy to do. I taught Photoshop and Dreamweaver and actually in the old days Director online. And if anybody ever used Director, just me. and can you imagine teaching that online? Now you can do it not in those days, no, but now you can use Confer to do it. I mean, there's all kinds of ways you could do it, but in those days it was really tough. I started by teaching hybrid class. So I'm going to be talking to you about hybrids, and I want to tell you that this came out of a kind of an interesting situation. I was teaching Introduction to Online Teaching and Learning, that one class. How many of you have taken that class? All right, great, quite a few of you. And I was teaching that class, and I had a student in the class, a teacher in the class, who said, I'm not teaching a fully online class, I'm teaching a hybrid class, and I don't know, and I had them doing objectives, because when you do your objectives, then you can do the activities you're going to do off the objectives. And so I had them doing objectives, but he was having a problem trying to figure out what part of his class he should put online and what part of his class he should have be face-to-face. And so he asked a question in the discussion forum, or it was a blog, and he asked a question in the blog about he was just really confused and didn't know what to do and didn't know how to proceed in this Introduction to Online Teaching class until that question was answered. So I wrote this very lengthy, elaborate answer to the question, and as I wrote it, I realized that there wasn't a lot of material that I had seen for us at the community colleges about teaching online. So I decided that I would take what I wrote. When I was finished with it, I went, oh, this is kind of cool. This is kind of a cool thing that I hadn't thought about, because in the process I was going back and thinking about when I taught hybrid class and all of that. And so this is where this presentation came from. I ended up with the handout that you see in front of you, which I'm going to go through a little bit later, but I ended up with that as the answer to the question. And the answer to the question was, well, you could do it this way, and then when I went through this whole elaborate thing, or you could do it this way. And so both of those things are on that handout, and that kind of spawned the idea for this session. I thought, I ought to take that and talk to people about what their decision-making process is when they think about hybrid courses. So we're going to start with, this is designing a hybrid class, but we're going to start with what you know about that. And first of all, what is a hybrid? And a hybrid is when it's partially online, not completely online. That means you're meeting face-to-face with your students. Really what it means is you're holding your students to a synchronous schedule for part of the time. So for part of the time, your students have to be with you at a specific place at a specific time. Okay, that's what it means. And that changes everything, doesn't it? I mean, when you think about it, that means the student has to plan on being where you are when you're there. And then they have this other piece about being online to do stuff. Okay, so timing is a really big piece of what you're doing. And then you have to, of course, coordinate that with your college to make sure that you're in the schedule in the right way and all of that kind of stuff that goes with it. There's a lot to think about when you're planning a hybrid class. Why would you do a hybrid class? How many of you teach hybrid classes now? And just a couple of people, and you're going to have to, I'll repeat it so that the folks that are online, because this is being e-cast through Confer, so I will try to repeat the question or the answer that you give me. Why did you choose to teach your class as a hybrid? Just real briefly. Anybody? Yes?
I taught for 11 years, face-to-face class, and I actually came to this conference and got excited. And I thought about it all summer, and it's made an amazing difference.
Okay, so it's just because you were inspired by something and decided you wanted to give that one a shot. And no one stopped you. Okay. Yes?
I do it for Assam in India.
Okay.
This is something like Newton's first law. It's not going to change forever.
It's not going to, yes, right. Okay.
So like, you are going to do the same thing again and again. So what is I'm just wasting my time? So basically there are a couple of things which are true.
So the things that don't change are online,
Put it online.
and the things that do change,
That's really good.
it's nice, I like that. Things that do change, that's one way, yeah.
I was teaching internet research methods, and I was teaching it face-to-face, but I found I was spending more time on the computers than I was in talking to them. So finally I made it both.
So that made sense. And that, can you hear me up here online? Belinda, can you check? Can you hear it if someone else is talking?
Belinda is chatting an answer.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe somebody else.
Stop talking, Belinda, and answer. Did you hear? Did you hear Catherine's answer a second ago?
She found an element that works. It says a little, so you're going to have to repeat what the...
Okay, just a little. So I'll just have to repeat. Okay. And so Catherine said that she found herself doing a lot of stuff on the computer anyway, so that worked out for her. All right, so there are a lot of reasons. Yes?
I have a question. I teach a course that has an online component where they work individually. And then there's a component where we meet on the group.
Yes, nice. That's called, yes, it is a hybrid. And what he's saying is he meets online, and he also has online activities. So he meets with the students online through Confer and has online activities, and we call that a virtual hybrid. Okay, and a virtual hybrid, and it has some of the same things that a hybrid does in that all of that scheduling piece. Okay, if you're teaching online, you don't want, and you tell students it's a fully online class, you don't want them to think they have to be anywhere at any time together, because that's going to mess them up. Because the reason people take online classes is for the convenience of being able to take it on their own time for whatever reason, their work schedule, their home schedule, whatever it happens to be. So if you take a fully online class and now you tweak it and say they have to be somewhere, then it's no longer really the same thing. So the idea of a virtual hybrid gives students that idea that they do have to be somewhere at the same time. Yeah.
For completely online courses, we recently run into the dilemma of having to have a proctored midterm or final exam. And if you don't have a testing center, then that whole idea of being all things for all people
goes away.
is somewhat restricted.
Right, and what he just said was that that there are times when you have to have proctoring done. I think I'm just going to paraphrase. I think, and that only because I'm tired. and if they can't come to the center that you've set out for them, then that really changes the whole essence of what you're doing in an online class. And one of the ways to solve that, now it's getting off the topic a little bit, but just very quickly, one of the ways to solve that is to set up a process for how you, as the teacher and the student, decide where that proctoring will take place. It doesn't have to be your campus. Then you have a fully online class with proctoring. And we're rooting for something to happen in the state, and that is that all the colleges open up their learning centers or their proctoring centers to all the students for all the California community colleges, so that they can go anywhere and take a test. We don't charge them or whatever. Okay, so we're working on that. But that's a little beside the point here, and I want to kind of get back on it. So a hybrid is any time you replace face-to-face time with online activity. Okay, so just so you know, in lieu of, and it isn't when you decide that you're going to put materials online, but you meet with your class through the regular schedule as you normally would, but you put a bunch of stuff online, including tests or whatever. That is not a hybrid. Okay, that's web-mediated, but that's not a hybrid. All right, so I'm going to find out what you know. And so those of you at home will just have to kind of watch this and think about your answers, because I'm going to ask people to give me a couple of answers or to think about it. I was going to use Poll Everywhere, but I'm not using my own computer, and it's a whole story. So I'm not doing that. So here's a class. A hybrid class is, and you can pick one of those, 90%, 80%, 51%, 1%, all of the above. What do you think? 51%. How many say 51%? Okay, folks at home, there are about 7 or 8 hands raised here. How many say 80? 90? 1%? How many say 1% online is a hybrid class? Okay, you're right. Okay, you're right. The 51% is a real bone of contention with me, because for my just about entire online career, I've been trying to get rid of that notion of 51%. What 51% means is that that is what the Chancellor's Office used in the beginning to determine what a distance ed course was. Anything that went over 50% was now considered distance ed for reporting purposes. Okay? A hybrid class now, if you look at the guidelines and the regulations now, they were changed in 2008. And I know because I was on the DTAC and TTAC during that time, and they were changed. So what it is now anytime you replace face-to-face with online, anytime. Okay, that means 1%, it is now a hybrid class. Okay, not 51%. Now, at your college, in your schedule or wherever, you may call a hybrid 51% or more online. You may call it that. You can call it whatever you want. You could call it a green class with pink spots, if that's what you want to call it. But as far as the regulations are concerned, a hybrid class is any time you replace. Okay, now, not if you get sick and you put your stuff online, no. We're talking about in lieu of face-to-face time. That's by regulation, you guys. Okay, whatever your college calls it, it's up to you. But that's by regulation. At our college, what we do is we say anytime a student has to come to campus for anything, it's a hybrid class. That's not the same definition. But what we do is that's for marketing. So students know, okay, it's an online class. I know I don't have to come to class for anything. And that's why we have our own terms. That's what we call it. A fully online class, they know they don't have to come. A hybrid class, they got to come for something. May only be once, maybe twice for tests, but they have to come. So they know they have to live near our campus or be able to get to our campus. Okay, so that 51%, not by regulation. Okay, so here's the problem. All that other stuff, all the quality stuff, think about that for just a second. I have another question. What do you think? Hybrid classes have better success rates than face-to-face classes? They don't. It's about the same, actually. They're finding it's about the same. Everything I can find said they're pretty similar. Do they have better success rates than fully online classes? Yes. Yes, they do. Okay, and we know why.
Depends how you implement it.
Yes, I think that's probably true, too.
Like, if you give some concept videos and you show them on the stage, maybe I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. All of the success and retention stuff depends on how the courses are done, all of it. But generally, looking at that. Excuse me, that's wrong. That should say that they don't. That should be false, and I'm not going to move the slide. Okay. Online components of a hybrid class don't have to have the interactions with the instructor. False. They do. Regular effective contact has to happen in a hybrid class. Okay, that's by your regulations, folks. You go in and read them. That's what it says. It doesn't say it specifically, but when you look at everything, it says distance ed is whenever you replace face-to-face time with something at a distance, that's distance ed. Then the rest of it is about all the quality measures that pertain to distance ed. So if distance ed includes hybrids, then all of it has to be. Okay. Hybrid classes do not have to have their curriculum approved. Good for you. It's false. They do. You have to do separate approval for hybrid classes. Under 50% and over 50% and at 50%. Okay? You have to do that. So enough of the regulation stuff. Is a hybrid class a flipped class? This is really confusing. Okay? Really, really confusing because flipped classes has a real weird meaning nowadays. So this is something you have to think about. To me, in my mind, a flipped class is that I'm teaching my class like I would normally teach my class. I'm meeting with them every day, the whole time, every time I'm supposed to meet with them and everything. But I've got all my lectures and stuff online, and I'm meeting with them to do the one-on-one, to do all the problem solving and stuff. That's, for me, that's my definition of a flipped classroom. That's what I understand as a flipped classroom. However, you could take it a step further and say, I flipped my class and it works so well that now I don't have to meet with the students as much as I did, so I can change it to a hybrid. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's how come flipped sounds a little strange and it gets us confused with what people are talking about. And there's no you know, there's no official definition of flipped. The idea of a flipped classroom is just taking the traditional model of teaching and turning it upside down. That's all it is, okay? So it could be, or it may not be. So let's talk about designing a hybrid class. And we're gonna just talk about that a little bit. The first time I did a hybrid class, I thought, here's what I'll do. I will put all these tutorials online. And I learned how to use Camtasia. And I had all these great videos. And I was going to put them online for how to learn how to use the software I was teaching. Okay, because I was teaching a lot of software. And I would take all of my conceptual material, all of my wonderful, you know, lecture with people and talking about what it's like to get a job in multimedia and, you know, all the concepts around usability and all that kind of stuff, that I would do that face-to-face with my students. Guess what? It didn't work. Because really what they needed from me was they needed me to sit with them next to the computer while they were using the software, while they were building their images, while they were creating their videos. I could do this in a video and put it online. I could do this and write it out well with images and stuff. And that was better. So if I put all of that stuff, but that's just me now, okay? But if I put all that stuff online and then worked with them one-on-one during the face-to-face time, I had flipped my class and I had a hybrid. Okay. And that worked out really, really well. What happened was eventually I learned how to teach the face-to-face stuff that I was doing, all the technical stuff. I learned more and more how to teach that until I could do the whole thing online. Okay, and so that's how I moved from teaching a hybrid class to teaching an online class, inch by inch, piece by piece. So as I taught the hybrid class, I started with 50% was face-to-face. Okay. And the rest of it was online. And that's kind of crazy too, because if you think about what are those pieces, unless you've got your class completely divided down the middle with these kinds of activities and these kinds of activities, that's not going to work. Okay? It's not going to work. First of all, you need to be consistent with your students. What kinds of things do they expect to find online? How important is it to what they're going to do in the classroom? That's important. Why? Think about it. Wait for it. It's important because students won't do what they don't have to do. Okay, what is it? Students don't do optional. Okay, even if listening to the videos or reading the material is an assignment, unless there's something that they have to do that holds them accountable for that assignment, they won't do it. Some will. You've got some that definitely will. As a student, I would. Many of you would, unless, of course, someone invited you to go out to dinner or something like that. Then you might not, but you would. But not all students will. So in your face-to-face part, you have to hold them accountable for what you're asking them to do in the online component. So when you're dividing up your course, you have to think about, you know, how are you going to hold them accountable? But you also have to think about what is reasonable. And for me, it wasn't reasonable to do 50% because, honestly, the biggest part of my class was actually sitting down and doing the technical work. So it didn't make sense for me to have a 50-50 class. It made sense for me to have probably about 20 to 30% online, and then the rest of it sitting with them working, whatever they need. You've got to look at what is it they need, and that's how you decide. Now, if you're in a college where they tell you a hybrid is this many meetings face-to-face, this much online, now it's time to change the conversation. That's tough. That's hard to do. And here's why. Because when you're scheduling, and I'm on the other side of it now, right? So I'm a dean now, so I see all this stuff. I see the other side of the house and what has to happen. I didn't go to the dark side, but I sure see it. And you see, you know, kind of what's going on. And what's going on for some people is I've got to schedule that room. And if I have to schedule that room, I want to know that you've got a hybrid and you've got a hybrid, and I can have you guys in the same room. Because you're going to be there one day and you're going to be there the next day. So when it comes down to that kind of stuff, you're going to have some things that you're going to have to work with your administration about. And the best way to do that is to talk to them about what the quality is, what is the reason for putting your course online. Be real clear yourself what that's about, so that you can make a clear conversation, clear-cut side for a case for having it the way you need to have it. It's about teaching, it's about learning, it's about the pedagogy, it's about the content of your class. It's not about somebody's idea that they have to have a classroom at a certain time. Now, very practically, they do have to have a classroom at a certain time. However, it's not always about, it's not really about that when it comes to quality. So that conversation is a hard one. You have to really make sure you framed it very clearly. You have to understand the pieces. So like I said, you have to know what the regulations say. So you can say, no, 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 the regulations do not say that. That's probably your first step, because that's going to be the first argument that people give you. Well, you know, I'm sorry, this is the definition. I will tell you there are no definitions for hybrids. It's not in the glossary. There's no definition for a hybrid at the federal level. There's no definition for hybrid. There's only a definition for distance ed. So you're not going to find one anywhere. So just consider that too. And there was a question online, I think. Yeah?
Comment actually.
Oh.
Does face-to-face teaching and learning should be the larger part IPB?
Face-to-face. It's a belief. You're right. It's a belief. You have to consider your success and retention. What is it you're trying to do? There's all kinds of things that go into that. I think one of the great things about hybrid is if you want to learn how to teach online, to do it in small increments is a good way to get started. You know, so that's nice. But then you're watching, how do students do? You know, you're assessing constantly, constantly assessing. So I've given you a handout, and I'd like you to look at actually the last page first. Now, why did I do it that way? I think it's my thought process, but which should tell you something about me. Maybe not so good, but there it is. So those of you online, you have a document that has 3 pages, and you want to go to the 3rd page, the last page, and it says Activity 2, Drilling Down. And I want you to take a look at the table at the bottom. I have become a very fond of student learning outcomes. Really? You guys are going, oh, no way, you are not. But I am very fond of them. I actually really like them. And what happened to me in same introduction to online teaching learning class, same thing, trying to figure out how to help somebody. I realized, and we teach this, but I didn't realize how important it was until we started talking about hybrid. And that is, when you are doing a class, or an online class, or you're designing it, the first thing you need to do is look at what you have to teach. What is it you want them to do? And most of you, how many of you use the idea of a unit? You know, here's the topic, and these are the things you do to teach the topic, right? The unit may last a week, it may last 2 weeks, whatever it happens to be, it's a unit. So the first thing you want to do is define your units, and then just outline them. And then under each unit do the create the outcomes for that unit. Okay. Now you have a outline of record, correct? Course outline of record. Course outline of record has objectives. I'm not talking about objectives. The objectives are the overarching objectives for the course. You probably don't teach them in the same order that they're there. They're not about that. Okay. So outcomes are exactly what you want students to do, to know how to do, to complete, to be successful in. That's what an outcome is. So if you take a unit, you may have student learning outcomes, and you may have 3 for a particular class that you're assessing. And so this semester we're assessing these 3 outcomes, or this year, and we're all going to assess those 3 outcomes. I'm not talking about those kind of outcomes. Okay. Now those outcomes may be the ones you're using in this exercise I'm talking about. They probably would be somewhere. They'd be in there somewhere. But what that's about is assessing the course over time, over everybody who's teaching it, just generally assessing the course. I'm talking about what is it you want to teach and what do you want them to be able to do. So if you can take your unit and break it down into outcomes for the unit, that you're going to have your SLOs for the course in there somewhere. Okay, but this is a little more drilling down, a little more detailed. So, you know, I'm trying to understand outcomes. When I was a faculty member and this SLO whole thing came through, I wasn't happy about it. But I was teaching CTE. We've always had outcomes in CTE, career transfer, career technical. We always had outcomes. We knew what those are. Anybody in nursing? People in nursing always know. They always have those. We've always had those. So that wasn't so bad. I just wasn't crazy about the idea of having to do it because someone was telling me I had to do it. But now it makes really good sense. In this situation, it does. So if you take a look at that table, if the verb in your outcome is I want students to understand something, how do you make them understand something? What am I doing right now? What method am I using? Lecture. I'm getting some interaction, but I'm using lecture. So in lecture, I want you to understand what a hybrid is. I want you to understand what the regulations are. Okay? I want you to understand. What am I expecting you to do? I'm expecting you to listen to my lecture. Okay? Low level, actually. I want you to understand. So if it's a lecture presentation, I can do a video. Then I can hold people accountable in a quiz. Okay? If I'm doing that, I can put it online. How much time is it going to take? About 30 minutes. Okay. If I was doing something online, I wouldn't go over that. Okay? There's understand. I want you to understand more. I'm going to have you read. Oh, I'm going to have you read this handout, because that's going to understand more. You understand more. So I can put those things online. It's a web material, it's a video, I can put them online, right? Cool, okay. So now I want you to collaborate. I want you to do some group research about success and retention in hybrid classes. What do I do with that? Where do I put that? How does that happen? What are some ideas for how we can do that? How can we do that? What kind of activities? I can have you all break into groups right now. And if you all had computers, that's a problem. Okay. If it was something I wanted you to collaborate on that wasn't research, it was talking about something, I might be able to do it face to face, get you all together and have you do it. Now I want you to do some research. So I want you all to be on computers. So now I want you to collaborate and all be on computers. Do I want to do that in a regular classroom? Do I have a computer lab? Probably not. Depending on what I'm teaching, probably not. But if I did, then maybe I could bring people together to do that in my classroom. But what a great way. How about having them build a wiki? Okay, and a wiki, you know, everybody knows what a wiki is. It's like a real easy to build website that they can all work on together. Okay, so I'd have them build a wiki with their research. I can do that online. I want them to identify something. That's low level in research. From online sources. I can have them do that online. I can have them create individual writing to give me back all the stuff they're learning. I can have them do that online. Oh, I want them to create something in Photoshop now. I want them to create an artistic graphic to go with their essay, and I want them to do it, you know, as an advertising piece. And I want them to create something. With this particular example, I would want that face-to-face, because I'm going to go around and help them. Okay, I'm going to help them make sure they understand the software. Can I help them online? Sure I can. I can use Confer, but I have to know how to use Confer. Okay, there are more skills that I have to have in order to be able to make that happen, and there are more skills the students have to have in order to make that happen. But if I can actually work with them face-to-face. Now for me, teaching people Photoshop in my multimedia classes, I also had to teach them how to have professional looking graphics. And so now I'm teaching them how to design and what their artwork should look like. And that, you know this, that is tough to do online. I'm going to critique them. I can critique online, but it's much harder than critiquing face-to-face. I did critique online using Confer because I could give them, I could take their computer and change their work. You know, but that takes some skill. That took me a while to build. It didn't feel real good, and the work that resulted was not as good as the work that if I worked with them face-to-face came out. So for me, the choices are, what kind of work am I going to get out of them? What is it going to look like? What's it going to be like? So I had to decide, based on those objectives, what kinds of things needed to be online and what kinds of things needed to be face-to-face. So you want to start there. You want to start thinking about, you know, those items in your class and where do they belong. Objectives can help you. They certainly can help you identify what kind of tools you need to use and whether they should be face-to-face or not. Yeah?
Here's a question for collaboration. I use this discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than meeting or group meetings, we can also use group discussions in a hybrid or technologically advanced.
Absolutely, and a discussion tool is a great tool for collaboration. So a lot of collaboration can go online, you know. She was saying that she used discussions, I'm sorry for those of you online, for collaboration in an online class. And discussions are great. What are the other tools you can use for collaboration? You have a wiki tool, you have discussion forums. Is there anything else you can use? Voice threads. What else? How about, how about a Google Hangout? How many of you know how to use Google Hangouts? Never heard of it. Free, fun, easy. That's all you really need to know. It is really, really easy. And what's really nice about them is that you can set them up on the fly. They're very quick, and you can have, I mean, it's really cool. You've got pictures of the people across the bottom. There's, I think, 10. There's about 10 is what you get to have. And you can see 10 groups or 10 people across the bottom of the screen. Whoever's talking is in the middle of the screen. And if they're on voice over IP, when they start talking, they go in the middle. So it's just really pretty cool. And there's other stuff you can do, too. It's free. And you can, right, that's what Stephen uses. And you can, you can save it, you can go on, you can broadcast them, there's all kinds of things you can do with them. But it's a newer technology for us. It's going to take a little bit for you to learn how to use it, but it's not tough. Different than Confer, there's a completely different style of what's going on there. And you would use, what I really like about using CCC Confer is that I can teach something very easily and, and show it while I'm doing it. And I really like using Confer for that. And you can also get more people involved, and you can have a lot more people. So for collaboration, Hangouts would work for small groups of students.
Like Google Hangouts has been amazing for me to do things that I thought I'd have to go to a conference for, and I've been able to interact with educators all over the world on the topic. And then I also have been taking a class through Google Plus with my meditation teachers in New Hampshire. And it's just, I just say, it's magic.
It's nice, and what we're saying is there's lots of uses for Google Hangouts. Because of the MOOC that we were doing, that we just finished, we got a Gates grant, and we were working with other colleges across the country, Duke, Ohio State, Michigan State, Georgia Tech, and Mount San Jacinto College. and we were talking. We had to talk to each other, and we used Google Hangouts. And it was great because I could see these people, and they could see me, and they didn't see me as some kind of second best. They saw me as a real human being with some reasonable things to say. I wasn't some kind of community college stepchild. I was actually there. It was very, very cool. Yes. No, but someone has to set it up. So you decide you're going to have one. You go into Google. You have to have Google Plus. You go in, you set it up, and you send the invite to the people you want to be there. No, there isn't any. Yeah, and so it happens when a person speaks. They go to the. There is some. I mean, you have to be polite. You can't say, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm tired of hearing you talk." Just talk over the top of somebody. That doesn't work real well. No. Yeah, you do. Anyway, so there's a way to do that kind of collaboration. Honestly, every time I say that something can't be taught fully online, someone makes a liar out of me. So I don't say that anymore. Although there are things that you would want necessarily to teach online. I don't know if any of you know Wheeler Norris, who is with the Senate, who teaches people how to fix airplanes. And I really wouldn't want that to happen online. Okay. There's some other things that, but he can put some things there. He can put lecture material there as long as when they come and they do their practical work, he can see that they can do it. Child development's another one of those. Nursing is another one of those. Some of the stuff can be online, some not. There's practicum you have to do. So, there's those kinds of issues. So that was one way, was to look at those kind of outcomes and kind of try to figure out how you're going to do them. What do I need to do them? That's an important thing to understand. You may not understand all of that right now because you don't have the technical skills and you don't have an instructional designer. You may not understand that. So what you could do is just take a look at your course, and that's the first thing. That was the first activity on those first couple of pages that I gave you. If you can, take a look at what you teach in a course and not drill down yet to those unit areas, but take a look generally in what you teach in a course. And then get some stickies. I like to use little yellow stickies on a table. And what you're going to do is you're going to take the learning activities in your course, generally speaking, what do you do? And kind of overall, and take those learning activities and you're going to write them on the yellow stickies, all the activities. Okay. And then on one side, you're going to put the ones that you know that students don't need your help with. What are things they don't need help with? They can do on their own for the most part. Put those on one side of the table. On the other side of the table, you're going to put the things that you know they do need help with, that usually they need help with. And those things that they need help with are the things that you do face-to-face. And then try to get a feel for how much time is it going to take for those things to happen? How much time does it usually take for me to do those things? And once you've done that exercise and you kind of have an idea about that, you also want to, on those stickies, put things that have to be done in groups or pairs. Put a G if they have to be done in groups on the sticky. So you know that you have to find a tool now. Maybe it's something that they need help with, and it's a G, and they need help with it, then you're going to do it face-to-face. Okay. If they don't need help with it, and it's a G, now you have to find discussion board, hangout, something like that that they can do. Spread it out on a table and take a look at it. If you've taught your class before, you'll probably have a pretty good idea of what amount of time it's going to take for them to be in the face-to-face classroom. Time is really a weird thing online. Really weird and really hard to judge. So you have to try to understand what it takes for the online component too. How much time does it take for that? There's no homework in an online class. Fully online class, no homework. It's all homework. You know, I look at people's classes and they're showing me what they're going to do in their class, and they've got all this stuff that's in class. This is a fully online class, all the stuff that's in class, and all the stuff is homework. Really? It's all homework. It's all done at home. So when you're thinking about time, you're blending the homework stuff with the face-to-face stuff, the classwork and the homework, two different things. But in an online environment, they're not. And then what happens with a hybrid environment? Oh, now we're really complicating the issue. Okay, so you have to consider all the homework when you're doing a hybrid class. Where does that homework fit in? All right, how am I assigning it? What is it? Because the hardest part is how many hours of the course do I do face-to-face? How many hours of the course do I do online? I can't tell you that. You're going to have to figure that out for yourself, but you have to take into consideration the face-to-face part, the stuff they do online, like they can watch a video, but then there's homework. You know, oh my gosh, what's the homework? So now you're thinking, okay, there are 3 hours in my class for a 3-unit class per week, and then they do 6 hours of homework. Now we're talking about planning for how many hours? 9. You're planning for 9 hours. Okay. Now you're really thinking about that flipped idea, right? Because now you're thinking, whoa, is some of that homework what they need? Some of that homework, do they need help with that homework? How many of you teach math? Do students need help with homework?
Oh, yeah.
So why do they do it at home? You know, if they need your help with the homework, why are they doing it at home? Why aren't they doing it in the room with you? Well, when they're stuck, they raise their hand, you go over, you got it now. You know, you have it. It's taken care of now. You know what? That learning is going to go up. You're going to find that success and retention is going to go up. People who have done flipped math classes have found that, you know, when they take their lecture piece and they do it in a video, or they're using Khan Academy or something like that, and then they meet with their students and actually do it, it really works well for them. So, whoa, now I've got your heads going, what do? I don't want to do any of this. I'm going to go to the wine reception right now. How do you pitch it? You pitch it based on quality and pedagogy. You know, when we're doing any kind of work, I think the thing that always kind of bugs me is when I wanted to do something and someone would say, well, the computer doesn't do that. You know, and it was, I think that CurricuNet was probably the place that was really the one that stands out recently. That CurricuNet was driving how we wrote curriculum. excuse me? How we write curriculum should drive how curriculum is built, not the other way around. Okay, so that's how you pitch it. Well, I'm sorry, your room is telling me what I need to teach where? Your room schedule should not be telling you about what to teach where. The quality of your course, you pitch it by success and retention. And you ask for a trial. Can I do a pilot? Let me do a pilot. Let me do the class 50-50 the way you want me to, and let me do it in the times that I want to do. Let me have 2 sections. I'll run them the same. And then we'll see what success and retention happens in that. That, you know what? Here's one thing I've learned as a faculty member, as an academic senate member, as a dean, as a mom. Okay? You can't argue with quality. You cannot argue with quality. If you're talking about the quality of what you're teaching, the quality of what students are learning, how can you argue with that? You can't argue with that. If I'm talking about my working condition and having my overload and all of that kind of stuff, I'm sorry, a lot of arguments for that, but not about quality. You know, if I'm saying I only want to be here 1 day a week, so I want all my classes hybrid, I want them all to meet on Monday, you're not going to get there. You're not going to get there with me, and you're not going to get there with any other administrator either. So that's not the way to go about it, even if that's in your head. Keep it to yourself. Find the quality, okay? Find the quality piece, yes.
In your input, from your experience in working with, a lot of other people who are teaching hybrid courses, say you have a hybrid course and you've got a student who is functioning fine on the online portion, but doesn't even show up for the face-to-face portion. They don't get credit. They don't get credit because the face-to-face portion has to have accountability too. You know, and that's just in general. You know, we found out when we tried to put all our lecture materials online in the early days that if we put it all online, we put everything online, our students didn't come to class. You know, and since we couldn't grade on attendance, what did we have to do? We had to make sure there were participation points going on for when they were there. So you have to make sure they're accountable for being there, that even though, that what you're helping them with and what they're doing, there's some kind of product that they have to be responsible for by the end of that class period. So they actually have to come, unless you don't care. But, I mean, and some people don't care whether they come or not, but I can't imagine that. But having them come, holding them accountable for it, it's a way to go about it, It is good. I think it is good to put materials online for people. It used to bug me when, students would come and ask me, what did I miss? When, they missed a lot. And some folks say, well, it's all online now, so you don't have to worry about that. I never said that to my students, even though almost everything they did the class was available, because I taught online, I taught face-to-face, and I put all the materials online that I used in my online class. I just organized them differently so that it was more resource-oriented and not unit-wise. So it was just organized a bit differently, and they didn't get that everything was there. and there were accountability things that happened in the class. I did, sponge activities in the beginning and little quizzes when they came in that they had to take the quiz and turn it in and that kind of stuff. I mean, I come from K-12, so a sponge activity is the kind of thing I think of is when they come in the door, how do you get them to settle down and get to work? And those things are the things that you can hold them accountable for. So, hopefully, you have a better idea of hybrid and what you can do about it and how to get by with it. What are your questions about? Do you have questions? Yeah.
I want to know why you start from the end and work towards the beginning.
Because I was talking about outcomes, and outcomes are really important, but the first activity you want to do is this one. Okay? So I was talking about outcomes. If I'm talking to you, I want to talk to you about outcomes. But the first activity you're going to do is like go look at your whole class. Because what you have to do is you have to go into your dean and say, I want this to be a hybrid class. And you have to say how much of it you want where. You may be off the first time that you offer it. That's okay as long as you're not off too much. I was completely backwards. Micah was in that class. You can ask him about. No, don't ask him about it. You can be completely backwards. Don't worry about that. Some of that stuff will happen to you. You'll have some things in the wrong place. I'm trying not to have you have everything in the wrong place. Because our notion is, well, I'll do all the lecture face-to-face, and then I'll do all the activities online. when really they need help with the activity. So what is it they need help with? You know, that question's a big question. Not just about how to do it. How to do it has to do with how easy is it for them and how easy is it for you. You know, how do I do it? How do I get that to happen? But the most important thing is, what do they need help with? You know, what are they going to really need me for? You know, if it's inspiration and you can't do it in a video, then throw some of that into your face-to-face too. It doesn't have to be completely divided. You put all your lectures online and all your activities face-to-face. But you really need to think about that timing issue and what goes where in a kind of a rational and systematic way. Yeah?
One question. So, as you saw, so I have two thoughts. One would be to have them break into groups and then cover a particular group cover the case every week.
Right.
That's thinking, well, the problem with that is I'm a student. I'm thinking, well, these guys, they don't know what I'm not going to be a teacher. So that's my first thought. Then the second thought I had was bring in your work, and this is a math problem, and we'll sit down and we'll work in groups, and then I'll come around. And my thought is, you can see this all self-repeating. So I'm thinking, by the way, we have our entire fairly specific post classes online. And then they were orphans and no longer, you know, at a place, so we now do hybrid classes. So they love that. But I guess my question would be on the second way, like bringing in a math problem, then how do you get them to do the work on the cases so that you can sit down and have a meaningful class?
How you get them to work together on
the
cases.
So do you do the case presentation, the first one, where everybody, you break it into groups, and then a particular group would be responsible week by week to do a presentation? That might get more, you know, activity. Or do you bring, like math, do you have them bring in their work week by week, and then how do you ensure that they're going to, you know, there's going to be slackers who are just not going to read the case and bring it in.
And that'll happen. So how do you make sure that they're not slacking? They bring it in, but
Right.
they're not ready to go.
Exactly.
So, you know, there are lots, I think there are rubrics
Right.
and criteria that they have to follow, and that's very clearly set. So if they're not, and they can do peer evaluations in a group, where if the peer evaluation is by a rubric, oh boy, am I now an expert on peer evaluation. Try doing a MOOC without peer evaluation. And they're not satisfied with that. So some of the things you could do is have that kind of a criteria, dump the high and the low, and take what's in the middle and use that as the accountability measure if you want to do that. You know, one of the things that I'm learning too, this MOOC is teaching me a whole lot of stuff. It's a very different kind of environment. But one of the things I'm learning with that is that you have to try something and see how it, as a case, as a test case. So we're going to try this one. No points, no grade. We're going to try it. We're going to see how you do. And then you can elect to keep the grade or not keep the grade. And then from there on, here's what you're going to be accountable for. And in that way, you can kind of test case some stuff, do some pilots of some things. You're not going to, you know, you're not going to completely waste students' time if you're doing pilots. You know, as long as you're reasonable and you're really thoughtful about how you do it, you're not going to really waste students' time. You waste their time when you don't make changes with things that don't work. You know, then you're wasting people's time. And it's also, you could also just say, you know what, this didn't work. I'm going to try it a different way. This didn't work. Teaching director, I was just so arrogant. I thought I had it. I knew it. And I hit the wall, and some of you heard me say this. I hit the wall, and I could not teach it. It wasn't working. Well, that's when I learned Camtasia. That's when I learned how to do those videos. And I don't even think Confer was available for students then. It wasn't. So I couldn't even use that. And so what I told them was, we're going to rethink this. This is a completely online class, you know, with the arrogant teacher. And I said, we're just going to stop. And this was a Thursday, and next Tuesday I'll have some kind of solution. So take the weekend off, and we're going to have to make it up, but I'll have some kind of solution for you. It's my fault. It was fine. It was fine. You know, explain to students what you're doing. This is the first time I've offered this hybrid class. I need a lot of feedback from you. Those students, law students, they should be giving you tons of feedback. You know, that should be their thing, is giving you critique and feedback. And if you can get them to give you the feedback, then the next time you offer the course, you're going to be in better shape. How long does it take to get an online course really kind of up and running smoothly? How many offerings? How many times do you have to offer it, really? Third time. I would agree with the third time. First time, what have I gotten myself into? Just shoot me now. Second time, okay, well, I think I might be able to do this. Third time, wow, this is cool. Look at all this other stuff I can do. I mean, that's what happens over time. So you have to give yourself that time. You have to be willing to pilot, but be really thoughtful before you do the pilot because you want it to work. You really want it, especially if you're trying to sell it to somebody. You know, if you're really trying to sell it to somebody. But like I'm saying, quality, you know, it's really hard to argue with quality. And you know, if that's what your motivation is, you're going to be okay. I have trouble with people who have motivations like they don't want to be on campus, and they want to teach online because they don't want to be on campus. I have a real hard time with that. You know, I want to know what they want that they really want to do what they want to do. We have a question here, question there. We'll take this one and that one. Yeah.
CDW says, I've been using virtual hybrid by using CCC Confer. Now I have a new name for it. I've been calling it online with synchronous webinar.
I still would call it online with synchronous webinar. And then in parentheses, virtual hybrid until people start using the term virtual hybrid more. Until your college gets it. We call it that. We pretty much know what that is. We've only had a little bit of that. We had a whole program that was remote. It was like remote office assisting. There was another name for it, and Belinda probably knows. She could probably type it in there so I remember it. But it was office assisting, remote office assisting. And so they wanted it to be all online, but they wanted some meetings. So that's where we got the idea of the virtual hybrid. That's what we called it. And so we know what that is, but students may not, so you still may have to define it in that other way. And you had a question.
Thank you. I went to both the flipping your classroom and looking at the hybrid, and one of the questions I guess I'm looking for is I teach political science, and one of the elements, although there's wonderful simulations and all of that, is the reading requirement of about 40 to 55 pages a week. And so I'm looking for ideas or activities of how to flip or do things to get them to get the content on which you can do the other activities. So I wondered how people approach that.
If they can't do the activity because they didn't do the reading, they will do the reading. Okay? So it's how you hold them accountable for the reading material. Because sometimes, does this drive you crazy? They don't buy the book. I can't keep up. And why? Because I didn't buy the book. Okay, it's in the library too. Okay, so, you know, there's not a lot you can do for people who aren't going to do the work. You know, there really isn't. They're there in order to learn. If they're not going to do the work, they're not going to do the work. It's going to show. You have to make it show, though. Don't make it. You can't assign someone to buy a book that costs $150 and then never use it. You better not. You're right. So just because someone says you need a book, you know, think about how that might work. You also might want to think about looking at the stuff that's online, the reading material that's online that has other things that go with it that make it a little more than just reading. So that may help too. We've also done a reading apprenticeship program at our college. If you've never heard about reading apprenticeship, you might want to get into that. That's just kind of an aside. That helps students read in the discipline in which you're teaching. So reading for history is different than reading for science, is different, you know, than reading for literature. And so there are ways of teaching students how to read for your discipline and also how to teach reading while you're teaching other things, which we have to know how to do. We just have to know how to do. And did you have a question? Someone else had a question back there? And we have about, what, 5 minutes?
Yeah, I think.
If student success in hybrid courses is about the same as face-to-face classes, why do we need hybrid courses? Why not just have face-to-face?
It's about access. It's about access. It's about your access and their access. And sometimes, and I think what's going to happen is students in hybrid courses are actually going to do better. But they're not going to do better until we figure out how to offer them. So if we're putting the wrong thing in the online part and the wrong thing in the face-to-face part, yeah, it's not going to mean a thing. But the benefit The huge benefit, actually, is knowing that if you're asking them to do something online, they have to, and they will, okay, because they're online. They expect it. The really hard part about this is when you schedule them, students won't get that it's a hybrid class. You know, sometimes they don't get that it's a hybrid class unless you're really good at your marketing for your college, you know, that you really have it clear what a hybrid means. And then as a hybrid instructor, you contact your students first and tell them when they're meeting, where they're meeting, and when they're online, and when the class starts. We have all different times, so our college, we make them put it in the announcement. Students have to check into the hybrid class the way they have to check into the online class. So there's an announcement from your teacher when you check in that says, this class starts online tomorrow with this work. And then we meet next week on Wednesday for an hour. It doesn't start next week on Wednesday. It starts right now. So that kind of communication is really tough, too, and getting that communication across to your students takes a little bit of time and consideration.
I just have a suggestion on that. Now that we have Collaborate, having all these tools available to us, talking about the communication aspect of things, if you put it on a calendar as an appointment and they have it connected to their iPhones or their, you know, droids or whatever, it will be coming into them as an appointment with that reminder every time.
Yeah.
You'll get them there.
Yeah. Yeah, so have them use a calendar. Have them use their task calendars on their phones. Teach them how to set that up. You know, and that's something you can do in the face-to-face component right away, which would be a really good idea. Yeah.
You mentioned quality is obviously important.
Yeah.
I'm on the list of approving curriculum, and so it has to run by me in my area. You know, by me in my area. So how do I? What indicators do I look for in approving curriculum to ensure that there's going to be quality both in an online and a hybrid course?
Boy, that's the question of the century. It's in your process. It's in your addendum process, and it's also in the follow-up. How is your distance learning set up to begin with? The curriculum committee can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. If you see an addendum and it makes sense, like you've just seen that table, and you have something like that that says, I'm doing this face-to-face, here's how I'm going to do it online, and it makes sense to you and it's reasonable, you're probably going to be in good shape. But then there's follow-up, there's evaluation, and there's making sure that people are trained, and there's all those things are all connected. It's not just the responsibility of the curriculum committee. But I wouldn't have an addendum that has methods of instruction as a checkoff sheet, which is what Curricunet wanted us to do. And we said, no, that doesn't work for us. We have to have people connect their method of instruction with the objectives of the course. And so checking it off and not saying which objective you're doing in that manner doesn't work for us, because then you can't translate it into the online component. So we had to make sure that people were integrating their course outlines. And so that's really your first step. As a curriculum committee member, that's what you can do. Do you have Curricunet? Tell them you want to be like MSJC. They'll hate you for it. But but they have it now. They have it as a module now that works that way because we made them do it. So, and we have one more online, and then I'll let you guys go.
Combine them then. There's a question and sort of an answer, I guess. How do we motivate students to stay focused on completing their work that is now on an LMS? And Belinda says, I find students are resistant to being held accountable. I have deadlines. I inform them in the syllabi and during the first meeting, as well as consistently in the first weeks.
If you could see me right now, I'm just kind of going, you know, it is what it is. We all have problem with that, whether they're in the classroom or not in the classroom. You know, we do. And you know, there are ways you can see what they're doing online. They're not very good. But some course management systems show you what people are doing. But you know, you could go in and then leave it, walk away, and come back. It's kind of hard to tell. But trying to make sure that what you're asking them to do is meaningful. It means something. That means that I can't do X if I don't do Y. You know, and so we have to rethink that. This is a new world. We are not teaching the same people that we are, you know, and so we have to start thinking about that. I was in a meeting where Gavin Newsom was in this meeting. It's really cute, by the way. Oh gosh, I'm saying that online for archives. And we were, and Sorry about that. And we were, it was a big, huge meeting over at UCLA. You might have heard about it. It was called Reboot California. And they were trying to find out about whether private sector and MOOCs would work and all of that. And he made a comment that I thought, you know, we could just hang it up over, you know, over all of our classrooms, kind of about where we can see it, that says, my 3-year-old uses an iPad, and you can't teach her the same way you taught me. It isn't something that we can change. We can't say, we want to go back to the way we always knew how to do this. We can't change that. Would we want to? Maybe some of us, sometimes I think I'd want to, and maybe some of you would want to, but we can't. What we need to do now is to use what they do. Belinda, she knows. She's one of those people that uses television. She has students use their phones, their smartphones, in their in the online classroom with poll everywhere, with looking things up. You know, she uses that, and they're not on their phones talking to their friends and calling people because they're using it for doing stuff in class. You know, and that's what she does. And I think she makes use of their ability. One of the students told me, I can text faster than I can write. So I can do my notes in Twitter. And so the whole class does aha moments, and Belinda, if I'm wrong, you can correct me, does aha moments and takes notes about what she's teaching in Twitter, and when you go to that Twitter feed, you can see what they learned. So can they. Very cool idea. Is it hard? I don't think so. Does it mean she has to move around the room a little in the beginning? Yes, but do they respect her for letting them? That first day, they were, are you kidding? We get to keep the phone out? I was standing in the back. One of the kids said, this is a cool teacher. You know.
I gotta be the bad guy.
Yeah, it's time, you guys.
Presently, we're teaching people